Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to check in on the European nightcrawlers that live in these two systems. They've been living in these two systems for 14 weeks, 98 days, over which time we've fed them 8 times, with feeding number 9 planned for today after an 11-day interval since our most recent feeding. During the last feeding, we encountered some technical difficulties with the battery that was running low in the camera. So the camera started shutting off and not letting us get to the finish line. So we somehow muddled through, but it was sort of a very hasty wrap-up. And, well, maybe I was a little bit long-winded in preparing the video. Maybe the camera was just telling me to start getting things wrapped up, because I've already used enough of his time. So, let's see here. Having these plastic covers has resulted in anything on the top surface here as being quite nice and damp. I do remember these pieces of top coating newspaper as already being fragmented so far along that we were pretty skeptical as to whether they would continue to serve as top covering newspapers, or if perhaps at this point it might just be a good idea to repurpose them to a higher, more noble cause and let them be supplementary bedding to go down into the feeding zone. This top covering is holding up pretty good. It seemed to me like it might be a double layer. Maybe that's why it's holding up so good. It's hard to tell. Pretty sturdy stuff. Who knows? Maybe bin number 2 can actually get treated to a replacement top covering piece of newspaper. But today, since I don't have replacement feeding zone indicators, we're just going to have to stick with what was in here already. Luckily, these are holding up pretty good. We'll just hang on to these. And now we can dig in. So, the feeding zone indicators showed us where we last fed. So, why don't we just barge in on whatever it is they might still be working on from the last feeding. The one novelty item that went into these systems a couple feedings ago were chestnuts. I had 3 chestnuts, so each system got a whole chestnut. And then the third one just got cut in half, and half went into each of the systems. And by the last time we checked in here, the chestnuts had already been neatly emptied. I'm starting to run into some of the things I know that we fed last time. There was half of a plum. Each system got half of a plum, and the plum still looks like it's hardly been touched. And that piece of cantaloupe melon was also part of the last feeding. I do wonder if the cooler temperatures might be causing my worm bins to slow down a little bit. It does seem like things that I normally would expect to see gone by now are still showing up as leftovers. So here's one of the chestnut shells, which the worms dove into to eat the delicious insides. And that thing will also break down too. The shell will eventually break down as well. And we can even help it along if it starts to soften up and become more fragile. We can just crack it into smaller bits and help it along its journey to becoming broken down. Yeah, I see some stuff that looks kind of like perhaps it was the bedding that accompanied the last feeding. I do have a large supply of napkins that I'm trying to reduce, and I've also got some soiled paper towels, napkins just from around the house here. So those are probably going to become the things that we end up using as bedding down here when we reset the feeding. Man, for whatever reason, it seems like bin number 2 is a super popular spot. I saw that plum was right there. It rolled off the top of the pile. And perhaps it was just the juices of the fruit that these guys are coming out for. Yum, yum. It's curious, however, in bin number 1 we didn't get that sort of a reception when we first jumped in. I assume it was the plum, because I think it was right underneath the plum that I saw all the worms huddling. But then the plum rolled off my hand, and here it is. Because even here now you can see a good many worms remaining on that. Oh, here's chestnut shell. Not much of interest on this thing. Once they go in there and clear out the insides, there's usually not a lot of worm activity on that thing, but that thing will break down too over time. Just need to give it the time it needs. And everything seems to have its own time. Some things are surprising. Something like a chestnut shell, it's not too surprising. All you got to do is feel how it's a tough material. So chances are it's going to require some time to break down, but stuff like a cantaloupe melon rind sometimes goes quick, sometimes for whatever reason things that you expect to go quick don't go quick. Sometimes it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Alright, so on a couple occasions now I've been setting myself up with my prepared bedding right here within reach on the table with the lid off, ready to go. And man, oh man, this is a heavy batch because I created it with a great deal of moisture, and I think for this feeding I think we'll use a little bit of it. Last time I opted for using stuff that I'm trying to do away with, specifically napkins, and we'll use some of the napkins and paper towels and stuff like that as well, but I figured we'd give them a little treat. So I've got 1, 2, 3, split one of them in half, and then each system gets a nice vivid yellow napkin as well. And let's not forget about all these leftovers, the stuff they're getting in here, mostly small particle size. Some of these things are a little bit bigger. The stem right there looks like it would be a tough item for the worms to break down, but usually they manage to bust right through something like that a little bit more quickly than you might expect. Alright, I wasn't really paying too close attention, but it seemed to me like we kind of distributed the food supply pretty fairly across both systems. And, you know, I think we're just going to hang on to that little fragment of newspaper that we found covering the top of bin number 2 over here, because what the heck, we'll just let it go. One more little round, one more interval between now and the next check-in. This will continue to be our top covering for bin number 2. Alright, as we customarily do, we use the excavation, or at least we use the need to cover up the feeding zone as a reason to excavate from other portions of the bin from where we'd like to bring some material in, and at the same time give ourselves a chance to see how that material out there looks. Stuff seemed nice, had a good moisture content, perhaps a little dry near the top surface, but down low pretty moist and well populated with wormies. And now we've got a little bit of aerated material that we can kind of level off the whole system with here. Let's give bin number 1 the same basic treatment. Getting everything neatly covered up here. Gave them some nice bedding, a little bit of my collection of stuff that's in surplus, napkins and stuff, and then even a little bit of my fresh prepared bedding, of which I just restocked my supply yesterday, and I think this was our first use of it, tapping into the nice new fresh stuff. Although I think we managed to grab a handful that sort of mixed up some of the more aged seasoned stuff that's in there, combining it with the more recently created stuff. So both systems are really nice. When I fluff things up though, I start to approach the, not that I'm approaching the rim, because I'm certainly a way off from overflowing these bins, that's for sure, but still there's this sense that I get that I'm robbing myself of the space I like to have available to work, because I do like to excavate and push things and pile stuff up, and you do need to leave a little, do need to leave a little bit of space in reserve for that sort of stuff. So just want to make sure I don't work my way into a situation where I've run myself out of room to work that way. So let's see if we can leave a little bit of this this material in the systems rather than leaving it on my glove and taking it with me. I mean, these systems have a nice moisture content. I felt no need to come in here with the wand, and that's the reason we didn't do that. So The one coming in at the end there was strictly for housekeeping purposes, to try to neaten things up and rinse things off. So here, well, not much left as top covering. Little fragments, but we'll use whatever we got for this one last go around, and then I think these systems are going to get some sort of new replacement top covering solution, because what we're using right now has certainly come to the end of its useful life, I believe. Although this one, I don't know, kind of looks like it's doing just fine. I bet you we come back in here, it'll still be ready to go one more interval between feedings. But maybe we'll swap it out anyway, even if it doesn't need it for us to do so. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.